Welcome to our next edition of the Foundation Speaker Series. My name is Michelle Warofka. Today I'm very excited to spend some time with Colonel Dave Hall. For 30 years and 31 moves across the nation and around the globe, Colonel Dave Hall was a United States Air Force officer and pilot during a career that spanned active participation in the Vietnam, the Cold War, and the Balkans. He held command at the squadron, group, and wing levels and retired as a colonel in 2000. He has over 10,000 flying hours in numerous types of aircraft. Today, Dave is the owner of DRH Pilot Services and operates out of several central Pennsylvania airports. In simple terms, he can teach you to fly or go with you in your airplane if you need an insurance policy. In addition, he is a frequent motivational and safety speaker for FAA aviation seminars, and for each of the past 5 years, he has been rated in the top 1% of flight instructors in the nation. Prior to resuming his flying career and owning his own business, Dave was the president and CEO of Chambers of Commerce, economic development agencies, and regional leadership programs in Massachusetts, New York, and Pennsylvania, and is nationally certified in not-for-profit organizational management. Welcome, Colonel. Thanks for your service and for taking the time to be with me today.
Hey, thanks, Michelle. I can't think of any place I'd rather be today. It's interesting times that we're living in with the virus and political unrest, and I've certainly never experienced anything like that before.
No doubt. Well, I'm glad to spend this time with you here today. Thanks again for being here. Now, let's get started here. And I mentioned kind of in your introduction that you have quite an expansive career history here. You served in the Air Force, you ran Chambers of Commerce, and now you own your own business. So if you could kind of take us back, Dave, to your teenage years. When you were in high school, is this what you thought you'd be doing and where you'd be?
No, not even close. I thought I was going to be a biologist working wildlife management and in a national park someplace.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about that and take us back maybe through your educational pathway.
I graduated from high school in 1966, went to Syracuse University. Actually went to the New York State College of Forestry, which was on the Syracuse University campus. So I ended up with a degree from both places. Graduated in 1970, went to Air Force pilot training, picked up 2 more master's degrees in the Air Force. But I remember thinking when I graduated from Syracuse that I was never have to go back to school again. I was going to go to pilot training. Boy, was I wrong. It's been a lifetime of learning. 2 more master's degrees, a year of pilot training, which was stressful as any academic program I'd ever taken. All sorts of training in the Air Force between weapons training, munitions training, environmental law, at least 6 months anytime you went to a new airplane. When I got out of the service, 4-year course in not-for-profit management. And even today, it's constantly taking courses and webinars. So it's a lifelong process. There's no one pathway.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Now tell us a little bit about the Air Force. Did you go into the Air Force right out of high school, or when did you know you wanted to enlist in the Air Force?
Number one, I didn't know. I went in when I got to Syracuse. That was in the middle of the Vietnam War, and freshmen either had to take ROTC or gym. I was a gym rat, so I figured, well, shoot, take ROTC, it'll be an easy A, which it was. Did well with it, and then picked up an Air Force scholarship, which paid tuition and books and small stipend each month. And they said I was pilot qualified. I said, what's that mean? They said, when you graduate, you're going to pilot training. Oh, okay, 19-year-old kid. What did I know at the time? And so I didn't actually enlist. People that are right out of high school or a GED, that are going to be the technicians, the security police, the cooks, the administrative people, the backbone of the Air Force, if you will, those people enlist. Officers need a 4-year college degree, and you are commissioned as an officer by the president. So it's a very, very important distinction between the two.
Thank you for clarifying that and kind of walking us through that process there. Now, tell us, Dave, what did you enjoy most about the Air Force? I imagine there's a number of things, but what did you enjoy the most?
No question about it. It was the people. and the diversity of the people that I got to work with. Some phenomenally talented people that were all part of something that was bigger than themselves. Phenomenal guys to fly with. I've met presidents, I've met heads of state, I entertained members of the British royal family in my house for breakfast. After the Vietnam War, I had the opportunity to have dinner with some Russian officers that had commanded missile batteries in Hanoi and were shooting at me. That was a heck of an experience. And all over the world, around the globe in the last 30 years, or those 30 years, and just met some phenomenal people. I had Turkish fighter pilot on one side of me in a seminar and an astronaut in the other. And I just think the world of those people. And I think such a diversity from different nations, different races, different religions that you got a chance to work with and recognize that the world is really pretty darn small. The other part of that I really liked is being a commander. You have the responsibility, and it's an awesome responsibility. You're responsible for people, and you are making an impact or have the opportunity to make an impact on people's lives. I wouldn't have traded that for anything.
Wonderful. Now, since you've retired from the Air Force in 2000 after 30 years of service, as we mentioned earlier, do you think, was it your leadership role as a colonel and your passion for flying what really motivated you to run chambers of commerce and other businesses and then now ultimately start your own business?
Oh, I think certainly there was some transference of skills going to chambers of commerce, especially in the management and leadership and working with high-ranking civilians downtown. There was certainly some transference there. But I really made a mistake going into chambers of commerce. When I retired the first time, I was only 52. I thought I needed a job. Have to have a job. If I had it to do over again, I probably would have taken some time. As it was, my first retirement lasted 4 days. But, I had success with chambers of commerce. I enjoyed great relationships with the other executives around the country. But I never had the real passion and burning desire to stay with it. And after about 6 or 7 years, I realized I was getting burned out. That really came as a shock and a blow to my ego that happened. And I left the chamber business and I went back to flying. And sure, the colonel part gave me instant credibility. People knew that I flew impressively large, fast airplanes in combat. That gave you credibility. But I think the students quickly learned that it was not about me. It was about them. And it's up to me to adapt my life, my leadership, if you will, my style, my teaching style to them. Not everybody learns the same way. And it's up to me to figure out how you learn best or how my student learns best and then adapt my style to that. I mean, I teach a monkey to fly if you give him enough bananas, but the monkey only flies because you give him bananas. I want to be able to impart that passion for flight in my students. Sure, they're going to learn how to fly an airplane, but now if you give them that passion for flying an airplane, now all of a sudden they need their own airplane. Well, I can help you with that. They need a hangar to put their airplane in. I can help you with that. They need maintenance on their airplane. They need fuel for your airplane. I can help you with that. So it's full service and taking care of your customer, taking care of your people that makes you successful.
And now we talked about leadership, and speaking of that, the perfect segue into the next question. And I know, Colonel, you give an entire speech on leadership that our viewers can watch later on here, perhaps. But while I have you here, tell our viewers really what you think are qualities that make up a strong leader.
I think if you hit your computer and you type in characteristics of a great leader, Google's going to spit out hundreds of lists in less than a second. Bluntly, to me, most of them are meaningless. Everybody's different. Certainly, the ability to communicate, the ability to inspire people would be imperative. But I think first and foremost, you have to understand yourself. What makes you tick? Where are your hot buttons? How do you learn? How do you come across? Because if you don't understand yourself, how in the world are you going to understand and be able to lead other people? So I think that's, for me, you're responsible for a diverse group of people, and you have to recognize that they're all different. You need to treat them the same, you need to treat them equally, but you treat them differently, because what inspires one person is not going to inspire the other person. I also think that you have to be a character. You have to have character, Now, whether you call that accountability or integrity or empathy, that's certainly important. But there are so many things going on in leadership, and your organization can be smooth sailing one day, and the next day everything is absolutely going wrong, and it's total chaos. And so sometimes you've got to be a character, including having character. You got to be the showman. You've got to be the circus ringmaster. You've got to be the storyteller, somewhat larger than life, those type of things. So to me, it's know yourself first, and then have character, and then take what you can from all of those other lists.
Wonderful advice. Now, tell us a little bit more about your business, your company, DRH Pilot Services. Tell us a little bit about it, and maybe what some of your roles and responsibilities are.
I think what I like most is there is no typical day. One of my students is a NASCAR driver. We may fly to the races. Several of my clients have their own businesses. So we're going to fly to Vermont today and North Carolina tomorrow and Long Island on Friday. We're going to fly in the daytime. We're going to fly at nighttime. I may fly a birthday ride for a 7-year-old and then turn around and fly a World War II vet that hasn't flown in 70 years and just wants one more ride in an airplane and has his own story to tell. And in between that, then, okay, I've got to do the billing and the invoice, and then I've got to figure out the taxes and all the administrative stuff that you need to do. But there's no one typical day.
Every day is different. That's what makes it so exciting.
And that's why I love it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I had trouble with in the Chamber of Commerce business. Is it was cyclical, but it was always the same.
Mm-hmm. Now, for a student who, one of our viewers perhaps, who's sitting in high school and kind of thinking about life after high school, maybe looking to open up their own business like you or pursue aviation, what classes or courses should one consider to take to prepare for opening their own business or pursuing aviation?
Well, if it's your own business, then certainly a smattering of business type courses. Most schools offer them. Mm-hmm. If it's aviation specifically, yeah, probably a smattering of science. But you got to remember, I thought I was going to be a wildlife management major. I've been pretty successful in aviation. Yeah. 2 of my best students are college music professors. So there's no one path. And you can't say, well, if I take this course, and this course, I'm going to be a successful pilot. Not necessarily.
Everyone's different, right?
Everyone's different. But I think the bigger point is there are a lot of paths to get you where you want to go. Mm-hmm. By the same token, if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. But my favorite bumper sticker story was, if a mile of highway will get you a mile down the road, a mile of runway will get you anywhere.
Wow.
And so there are lots of different paths.
Dave, what's the best career advice you've ever received?
I think that you need to remember where you came from, not to lose sight of where you're going. But by the same token, just a laser focus and being the best that you can be in whatever job you have right now, because that job that you've got right now is the one that's going to lead to the next job. So you do the best job you can be. If it's digging ditches, be the best darn ditch digger you can possibly be. And it's going to lead to something bigger and better.
And how about some tips or advice for our viewers as they prepare for life after high school, regardless of what path they may choose to take, whether it's going right out into the workforce or college, a trade school, technical school, the military? I
think you have to be open to new possibilities and new opportunities. Sometimes you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone. One of my greatest opportunities came just because of a flippant off-the-cuff remark that I made to a senior officer one day. I used to work for a traveling inspection team when we would go from base to base, checking the proficiency of air crews. And we were up in northern Maine at a base called Loring Air Force Base, and it was in the middle of the wintertime, cold, wicked cold. And I had a reputation at the time of being a pretty difficult evaluator, and well-deserved. But the crew that I was evaluating that day just did not want to fly with me. So they kept inventing little problems with the airplanes that the maintenance guys couldn't find and couldn't fix. And the maintenance commander, who was a full colonel at the time, I was a major, so he's 2 ranks and light years above me in terms of his responsibility and everything, came out and he apologized to me because his guys couldn't find what was wrong with the airplane. And I said, sir, the only thing wrong with that airplane is the pilot sitting in the left seat. And he looked at me for a second. It took him a couple of seconds to figure out what I had just said, what I meant. And he got furious. But he stopped off and he jumped in his car and went down the taxiway a little bit, slipped on the ice, and you could see him screaming at somebody over his microphone. And then he came back, slipped on the ice. I thought, oh God, he's going to hit the airplane. He got out of his car and he came up to me and he said, I've got 5 officer jobs opening up this summer. Which one do you want? And at the time, I had never thought of going into the maintenance career field. I thought, stay in operations and continue to be a pilot. But I took him up on it, and I went to work for him that following summer. And that led eventually to a year with the Turkish Air Force. It led eventually to having my own squadron, all because I told him the truth in a slightly different manner than he might have expected it otherwise. And so I think you have to be open to those possibilities. I think the other one is step out of your comfort zone when it's appropriate.
Great tips. Wow. Well, and as we're sadly end our time here together. One more thing I know obviously we've talked about, flying is just one of many of your passions, but I know, Colonel, something else that's very near and dear to your heart is volunteering. You've been a long time volunteer, speaker, donor with one of our foundation's programs in Pennsylvania Free Enterprise Week. Tell me why is PFEW so important to you, and not only you, but the young people of our state?
For me, it's an interesting time. Life has been good to me. This is the stage of the life where volunteering is a way to give back. Specifically with PFEW, it's mentoring as a way to give back. If my generation doesn't talk to the generations that we expect are watching today, if we don't share our stories with them, if we don't talk to them about the things that we feel are important, how in the world are they going to put their own stories into context? I don't think that they can. And so that has always been very important to me. Now, specifically to PFEW, I think business gets a bad name every once in a while. People look at business and say, oh, it's all about corporate greed and profits. Not so. And PFEW gives that high school leader, and yes, every one of those students sitting in those seats when we do a live, they're leaders. They're the student academics, they're the student athletes, they're the creative musicians and the talented artists, and some of them are entrepreneurs. They are leaders. So they're coming, and if they can learn a few business terms and business concepts and think about how our system works, great. But there's so much more to PFEW. If they can think about business, but then also come together quickly as a team with 17 of their newest friends on a company, and they can make some good decisions in the business simulation, and they can cob together a couple of 10-minute presentations for the judges on Friday. Way to go. I'm proud of you. But I think also they're going to hear some phenomenally talented speakers that are going to share their stories with them. Some are going to make them laugh, some are going to make them cry, some will do both. And if they can listen to those speakers, take from them what is appropriate for them, fold that into the way that they look at life, the way they make choices and decisions, the way they treat people, then I think that we offer a what's the word I'm looking for? Wicked, awesome, possibly life-changing week for them. And I think that there are people like me that want to be there with them every step of the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Fantastic.
Well,
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Colonel, for joining me today here. It's been an honor. It's been an honor and pleasure to spend this time with you. I thank you certainly for your service to our country, the time you've spent today sharing the information on your life and your career, and for all that you do for our foundation. And last but certainly not least, for your friendship.
Hey, my pleasure. And thanks for trusting me to be part of it. You know, I've never met a microphone I didn't like.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you. You bet.
Finally, if you'd like to connect with Colonel Dave Hall directly, please stay tuned. His contact information will follow. Thanks so much for watching.